Now, you started off as a lawyer, then you became a banker, and now you run your own business. Can you tell me a little bit more about your experiences, what prompted these career changes, and tell me more about Yewande, the organizers?
Well, as you said, I am a lawyer, so always a lawyer, and I started off with a private practice. Then I went into a bank where I was the company secretary and head of legal and eventually the head of private banking. So I did the law and the banking for about 18 years. But after a while, I realized I wanted to do something different and I wanted to set up my own business. And when I spoke to all my friends, everybody who started their own business was doing something that they either did naturally or that they enjoyed. And I wondered, okay, what do I do naturally? What would I do happily even if people didn't pay me? And the only thing that came to my mind was organizing events. And at that time, that was 2002, it wasn't something that was very well known in this part of the world. So I was a pioneer of sorts, and I decided that, well, I'll give this a try. I had experience in the corporate world, having worked in the bank for 13 years and 5 years before then in legal practice. So I decided to start this business, Yewande, which is an event management company. I started out doing corporate events, but then along the way, people would ask us to do retail events. You know, I'd work for an MD of a company, he'd want you to do his birthday or his daughter's wedding, and the business just grew. And we've been here now 8 years.
Tell me what it's like being a woman in business in Lagos. What are the ups and downs? I mean, is it any different from anywhere else in the world? And are there any stereotypes?
Well, honestly, I don't think so, because the conferences I've attended around the world, the people I have spoken to, women face the same challenges everywhere, I find. And you know, the most important one for most people is the financials. Women find that it's actually a lot more difficult for them to get you know, financial assistance. But quite a few banks are now, you know, gearing their products towards women, so that is helping a bit. And also because a lot of women who go into business do not have that, you know, financial background and have not kept their records. So that's probably the reason why they actually have difficulty. But a lot of the women who are going into business are women who have held their own in the corporate field, are a lot more financially savvy, a lot more aware of what they need to do. So I think that's getting better. But in terms of the other types of challenges, I don't think there's anything that's peculiar to being a woman in Lagos or Nigeria or anywhere else. The gender issues are the same.
So what was it like when you started? Did you feel like there were many other women in business, or did you feel like just one in a few?
Well, yes, there were a few that I could at least go to and, you know, ask them, you know, how do you get around this roadblock and how do you do this? So there were a few women that I could go to, but it wasn't that there were a lot of us, certainly not. So it was, and also because the business that I was going into was such a new business, so that was really the challenge, because there wasn't anybody else I could actually ask about events management. So everything I knew, I had to either learn off the internet or read in books or really just, you know, making it up as I go along. But what was interesting was the first conference I went to in England, I was actually surprised about how intuitively I was doing the right thing. I mean, all the things that were like laid down practices that people in developed countries were doing were things we were doing, and the business developed. And as you know, since then, a lot of people have, there've been a lot of new entrants in there. But at first, that was the difficulty. Not so much more that there were not other women I could talk to, but there wasn't really anybody I could talk to about this particular area of business that I was in.
But I'm sure it wasn't all smooth. Were there any other challenges you faced?
Well, I mean, the greatest challenge, of course, is the infrastructure. I mean, I was lucky because when I first started business, because I wasn't sure how it would go, I was sharing offices with my husband who runs a printing and publishing press. So he gave me an office there. So I wasn't sort of carrying any overheads just in case things didn't work out. But of course, after a year or two, when I now moved to my own premises, I mean, but as I say, it's a challenge everybody in business faces, whether you're a woman or a man. The challenge of, you know, the power situation, you know, the traffic situation. But, you know, we all just, this is where we live, these are the problems, we just have to get over them and do what we have to do.
Now, in your opinion, do women get enough support from their male counterparts here in Lagos and from the business sector as a whole?
Okay, well, I think that really we need to stop sort of blaming the men for our situation. I think it's very important for us as women to do the things we need to do to get what we have to get. Now, if you want to have a loan, you have to have certain financial records. So we need to learn very early on that we must keep this financial records. And once we keep that and we go to a bank that has a facility, that can offer us a facility, once you have the same records a man would have, I believe you'd have the same kind of treatment. I think what has been the historical problem is the fact that women, you know, before would not run their businesses as professionally as they should, and so they wouldn't have the documentation to get the facilities they need. Another challenge we as women have is networking. We need to be out there a lot more. We need to get into the professional associations. We need to try and become, executives on those associations so that we can have leverage. Because if we just stay with our businesses and we don't want to expand our social and business network, then we won't get the positioning that the men get. So I think it's really left to us now to do what we have to do to make sure that we're positioned the same way the men are positioned. And I honestly, in my opinion, if we are positioned like the men, I think we have, a fairly equitable chance.
Now, do you think that women in Lagos are motivated enough to play a major part in business here in Lagos?
I think so, clearly. I think Nigerian women are amazing. We're extremely resilient, we're very resourceful, and my interaction with Nigerian businesswomen every time that I speak to, my counterparts and my colleagues, I am really impressed at the way that everyone wants to take their business to the next level, at least the people that I know. And I think that there is great motivation, especially now because of the financial situation. A lot of people have had to leave their very cozy and cushy banking and oil sector jobs and really have to fend for themselves. And I think because they have that background, the level of the women in business will just continue to rise in terms of professionalism.
Now, you're a major part of an NGO called Women in Management and Business. Can you tell me a little more about this?
Yes, I'm presently the chairperson of the Board of Trustees of Women in Management and Business, WIMBIZ, and this NGO was established about 8 years ago. And essentially our vision is to act as a catalyst to elevate the profile and influence of women in management and business. So this we do by various programs we run during the course of the year. Our flagship event is our annual conference, where we invite speakers, both men and women, and we take a topic for the year. We also have lectures. We have one coming up this month in March. We have a program, an outreach to the women who are still in university, because we want them to know that, look, you can win without compromise. That's what that is called, winning without compromise. We go to universities all around the country, and we have a mentoring program. So basically what we want to do is those of us who are on the Board of Trustees are women who have been fairly successful in our own careers and businesses, and we believe this is the way we can give back to society and encourage the other women coming up behind us.
Now, do you think if you had to do it all over again, you would have done anything differently from the beginning of your career?
I honestly wouldn't, because sometimes I think, oh, I wish I'd gone into business much earlier. But I am really grateful and happy that I did have that 18-year stint in in corporate practice, because first of all, that gave me the credibility when I launched my own business, because I was coming from a background where I was, a serious player. And also it gave me the chance to network with a lot of people that I might not have met. So for me, looking back, I think it's been God ordained, and I think it's worked out very well for me. First of all, the legal, then the banking, and now the events management. I think it's worked out very well for me, so I don't think I'd have done anything differently.